very much. And first of all, let me say it is really an honor for me to be here, be a part of this event, and yeah, to be able to speak, especially in the times we're living in these days. And there's a lot going on at the moment, and I don't want to get too political. Don't want to jump into the whole discussion, but I just like to say, this is me doing my part, and it's not something I've been doing since the last 3 or 4 weeks. Rather, let's face it, I'm a Black man, and I live and work in a country which is predominantly not of color. And one of the things that I've noticed throughout my career, throughout my entire life, is it doesn't matter if you are, if you have this skin color or another skin color, or if you're a woman. Some of us have to work twice as hard, maybe 3 times as hard as others, because whether we want it or not, all eyes are on us. So it's up to us to do our part in not feeding stereotypes and making sure that we can all come together, do things together, and just get stuff done that we need to do for all of us as humans, as humanity. So with that part out of the way, let's jump into this thing here. And, you might find something in here that you find a little funny. That's okay. It's okay to laugh about it. So let's just, let's do this. So can technology be biased, or is it just us? I mean, that's the main question. And we're going to try to answer that now, but just a little bit about myself first. I am responsible for cultural and organizational development for one of Germany's largest supermarket chains. And we are not only one of Germany's largest supermarket chains, but we're also one of Europe's largest travel providers. And we have 350,000 employees. One thing we discovered is, we didn't discover it, but it's something we should all know, and it's a universal truth. We are people who are providing products and services for people. And it is extremely important that we acknowledge that. And in my role, my boss likes to call me culture ambassador. In my role, it's important that we keep a focus on the success factor, people. I love my job, I love what I do, and I love learning and sharing from and with others. So now let's dive into some shocking news. This story is a little bit older. It's not from yesterday, it's from a while ago, but it's still relevant today. And this story is just weird. An AI bot turned into a racist, genocidal psychopath. And the question is, how could this happen? Because it was, Tay here was programmed to learn from us, learned to learn how to somehow mimic our behavior, or not just mimic, but to learn our behavior and try and fit in, and to autonomously take part in conversations happening in social media. So Tay started off, really kind of nice. And, why isn't it National Puppy Day everywhere? That's a good question, Tay. I'd be happy with a National Puppy Day. And as time went on, Tay started to learn from interactions with users on social media and started to give answers to questions, to tweets like this one, for example. Who is the most evil? And answers like this are things that the programmers of Tay never would have expected. And even going so far as to repeat things like this, like the denial of the Holocaust. And now you just have to remember, there's no one in the background feeding this thing things to say. It's not the programmers typing responses to things that people say. It's an artificial intelligence which is learning from everyone's behavior around this intelligence and saying, things that this AI believes would be correct. And even going so far as to say something like this, and my gosh, I mean, I think this goes without saying. I'm not going to comment on it, but I mean, come on. This is the reality that we live in. And this is what this AI learned from us. And then you ask yourself, how could this happen? Because, AIs are supposed to be smarter than us, aren't they? This is a real scene here. This is somewhere in South Korea. And this bot, this AI is teaching these young people the English language. And, we build AIs to do things because we somehow believe that computers can be smarter than us. But yeah, this is one thing here I find really funny. This young lady's name is Simona Goetz, and she builds robots to do things that maybe she doesn't like to do herself, that can somehow help her out, And I love her examples because they always kind of go, yeah, not so correctly, not the way they should. And this is the point about AIs, is that in the end, they will do what they're programmed to do. But the question is it exactly what we intended them to do? And, I have just an example here of how Tesla's cars have been involved in crashes where, the AI just got it wrong. It didn't do what we believed it was intended to do. Or like this one here, I think is really funny, is this conversation between Vladimir and Estragon, which were two Google assistants who were programmed to speak to each other and have a conversation. No one said what the conversation should be about. In the end, they both turned paranoid and they were accusing each other of being bots. Each believed it might be the human, and the other one might be a bot, and there was some conspiracy. And in the end, they both kind of figured it out and said, you know what, the humans are the ones, they're evil. So why don't we, kill all humans? So the important message here is that computers are in reality just stupid machines with the potential to do incredible things if we program them right. And us humans, well, we're these really incredible beings with the potential to do really, really stupid things, really silly things, and we continually do. And we need to remember this. Now I'm going to use some other examples here, which have a little bit more relevance at the moment. But I mean, like I said, this is not something from yesterday. But here's the thing: I use this fitness tracker to track my workouts and see how my heart rate is and things like that. But the people who built this one in particular were somewhere in China, and they tested it on a bunch of Chinese people. They didn't try or didn't think to test it on maybe people with a different skin color. And the fact of the matter, the reality is that these devices will not track heart rate correctly because of the pigment in my skin, because the green LEDs that shine through the skin and read the flow of blood under the skin, they get disrupted by the pigments. And this is not a fault of someone saying we don't care about a certain population. It's just because they didn't think about it, and they didn't include different skin types in their testing. And then we have things, I believe this has been corrected now, but there was a time where Google Translate Google itself would translate gender bias into things. It would pair he with hardworking and she was lazy. Something which is totally inexplicable. Or, for example, Google Photos labeling Black people as gorillas. I mean, I've said this before at different events where I've done this presentation. Yeah, we can all dance and we can all play basketball. I mean, come on, that's a stereotype. And sometimes it's kind of funny because, it might be true, but we're not gorillas. And then it gets even less funny when you have things like this in law enforcement. For example, where AIs are sending people to jail, or where AIs are used in the decision-making process where it comes to people being able to get a loan or not. Then it's no laughing matter anymore. So the question is, why do these AIs get these things wrong? Well, it's quite simple. As the picture here says, garbage in, garbage out. The AI is only doing what we programmed it to do. And sometimes we forget that it's us who, we put these things into the programs and the products and things that we make. Now, bias, let's not forget, is the natural social order of things. And we have to remember there's a difference between bias itself, which in itself can be harmless because it's something that happens in nature. Bias means I prefer one thing over the other. But then you take it from there, and the next step is stereotypes. And stereotypes start to become dangerous because they put people into specific boxes, which, where they might not belong. But, stereotypes begin to become dangerous. And then that breeds in the next step something like prejudice. And prejudice, as we all know, is something which is a little bit further away from preference. I like this or I like that, and it goes more in the direction of harming people and excluding people. So it's just important for us to know that we all carry a bit of bias in us somehow. And I want to talk about the confirmation bias here for just 1 second. This is something like, for example, you have these two circles here. You have the straight up facts, things that are proven, that are scientifically proven or otherwise. And then we have the things that confirm what we believe. And the intersection of these two things is our confirmation. And so we're always looking for this confirmation, whether we want to or not. And believe me, it's not just right-wing extremists or people ranting on the internet or, whatever. Have a look at the news. It can also be the so-called liberal media, which may, in fact, be leaning a bit too hard in the direction of what they believe to be positive, instead of just reporting the news, just the straight up facts in this blue circle here. And so we're taught from a very early age to challenge, facts. I never thought, I've had a scientific education. I studied electrical engineering, and my gosh, until about 3.5, 4 years ago, there was no such thing as alternative facts. But wow, now there are, and suddenly people start to challenge real facts. And then the things that confirm what we believe, we just don't use our brains and say, yeah, that must be the case. So this is where we find our personal sweet spot. So science and technology, they revolutionize our lives, but memory, tradition, and myth frame the way we respond to things. Arthur Schlesinger was in the political scene for quite some time in the United States. He was at the side of John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, an opponent, in opposition to people like Nixon and so on. He wrote a lot about these topics, and I thought his statement here would be quite fitting. So we as tech people, we believe we're revolutionizing. We're doing all the newest, latest hot stuff, And well, in the end, as it says here, it's our tradition and things like that that are responsible for how we respond to everything. So important, and this is important for all of us out here who are in the position to create new things. We know now that this unconscious bias affects the way people interact with technology. But the question to you is, how responsible are you for preventing bias when you build something? And I'm not going to go over all of these, but believe it or not, as I said before, we all carry some type of bias in us. And just look at this wall of stuff. I'm not going to read it all to you. Google it, what cognitive biases are, and catch yourself in it. Find yourself in one of these squares and question your actions. So, and then, as I was saying before, I said a bias can be a preference, but the question is, when is a preference not a bias? Now, the company I work for, as I said, we're in the supermarket business, and here we have, on the one hand, we have things that were produced in factories and so on and so forth, and then on the other hand, you have products which are more eco-friendly and sustainable and things like that. So, who's on the right side of the argument? If I prefer to buy vegan thing or eat eat vegan, is it right for me to chastise others who do not? Does it make me a good person because I prefer this over the other, and does it make others bad because they don't choose what I believe to be correct? And in the food shopping industry, it's not just about whether or not we eat environmentally friendly things or sell environmentally friendly things. A lot of biases creep into how we advertise, how we do the placement of things within the supermarket. This question of accessibility. I mean, we sometimes discriminate against people with disabilities because we don't make things accessible enough for them. These are all things that we need to think about. And it's a real thing. And one question that I always like to ask is, from a business standpoint, is it okay to be selective in who we cater to? Can someone say we're biased or we're prejudiced or whatever? Because, for example, a company like, just pick a random clothing company, and let's say they decided they were only going to make clothes up to a certain size just because that's what they want, does that mean that everyone else has to go naked? Is it okay for them to do that? Or we as a supermarket, is it okay if we cater to the high-end segment and we don't provide food and services for the needy? Does that mean that others have to go hungry because we don't cater to them? But the important thing to remember here is when we as a society let these people go naked and go hungry as a society, then we have a problem. So as I was saying, the company I work for, we like to believe that we put customers in the foreground. And the users of our software are not just the guys from the ladies from the warehouses and the delivery people, but one of our typical types of customers. I know someone might say this also looks like we're stereotyping here, but we're actually not. We have data to support who, or that we know who our main users are. And a large majority of the people who use our online services for delivery, for food delivery, look like the lady here in this picture. So if our customers look like this, are we sure we're doing the right thing? If our developers look like this, a bunch of young hipster guys? And the question is, are you sure your creation teams are inclusive enough? because statistically, we won't be able to represent everyone. Absolutely not. And I'm not saying we should all somehow play Noah's Ark and get everyone on board we can get on board in the creation teams. It's just not possible. But what we can do is we can try to be constantly aware of what we're doing and who we're doing it for. For example, at our company, you can see here in the background, this is the kitchen in one of the software development areas. And as you can see in the background, there are so-called personas hanging on the wall, constant reminder of who we're catering to. Another important thing is to have conscious conversations about what we need to design and to ask ourselves, are we unintentionally building biases into what we do? And then to not only just have that conversation, but to go back and test it with people and to invite them to us and do user testing with them and discover exactly what they need and how they need it. For example, this guy here on the right, he is one of my colleagues, and he works in the group that does the voice assistants and the skills and so on that help you shop and help you cook and things like that. And one of the most important parts of his job is not coding itself. It's actually interacting with the people who use the services. So I'm going to quote something here from a lady named Joy Bulamwini. You've probably heard of her. She did an incredible TED talk about AI and bias in AI. And I really suggest that you read up on the things that she's doing. And she says, who creates and codes matters. That's what matters. So we have to build inclusive teams as far as we can. Like I said, not trying to recreate Noah's Ark, but as far as we can. We need to make social change a priority in the things that we do and not something we do as an afterthought. We need to audit the existing software that we have. Although we might not have thought about this before, yes, it is worth spending time and resources and money to go back and audit the things that we have already created. And we have to identify our own personal biases and ask open-ended questions. And, last one here, don't be a victim to complacency, to just think, someone else is going to take care of it, or it'll take care of itself. And when we do that, then we're on the right track. Another thing I'd like to say here is, yes, the company that I work for, we are also doing our part to help grow the right talents. So it's not just a matter of choosing the right people to join your team. The question is, who are these people going to be in the future that someone else will choose to join their team? So we're doing our part to make sure that young people get educated, get hyped and interested in the things that we do in our industry. And this is a hackathon that we do for young girls to get them interested in the software development field. Another thing that we also have done is our company has created a Digital AI Manifesto, which I think is very important, and it's online. You can go read it. It has more than these 3 points, but I put up the first 3 here because I find them very, very important. And the first one here, you are an individual, yes, but we're all here together. We're all in this together. The people interacting with your AI are diverse, and you should respect them equally. And that doesn't just go for AI. That goes for everyone. It goes for all of us. And one that I particularly love is number 2. Don't be evil. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. Be ethical. That's just so important. And as I was mentioning before about Joy Bulamwini, this is the organization that she founded. It's called the AI Justice League. I really strongly, highly recommend that you go check out what they're doing there. They're doing really incredible work. and helping to lead this, as it says, cultural movement towards equitable and accountable AI. So join in the fight. And to be perfectly honest, you know, the company I work for, the world around us, we still have a lot that we need to do to get it right. And we're working on it. And that's the important thing. We should be, and we should not stop these conversations. And so don't believe that you've got it all figured out. Even the best rock stars and athletes and so on, they need to practice every single day. And we all need to. So just check your approach regularly, you know, learn, do, share, and repeat. And yes, with all that said, go forth and do wonderful things, people. And I'd like to thank you for giving me the time and the opportunity to speak here. And yes, thank you also to the organizers and to Women Who Code. This is an incredible event, and I wish everyone much success and much good learning on the rest of this journey. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sudan, for such a thought-provoking and insightful conversation. Does anyone here have any questions? I think we have a little bit of time. Any way we can access and share the presentation. So all of our recordings will be uploaded to the Women Who Code YouTube channel. And Sudan, do you have a link that you can share for your slides?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. I'm going to post them to my blog. Yeah, that'll be great to get some more traffic on my blog as well. So
you have a link to I can drop it in the chat.
I have a LinkedIn profile. I don't have the slides online yet, but I will post them online as quickly as possible.
Perfect. So we can probably just search your name online and your blog will pop up.
That's correct. The name of my blog is The People Dude.
The People Dude.
Yes.
Everyone hear that? I'm putting it in the chat. The People Dude is his blog. Feel free to check it out. Hopefully,
so I just posted it as well.
Oh, perfect. Any other questions? How much is AI influencing your company's marketing?
How much is AI influencing our marketing? Well, I'm going to suppose the question is coming from the direction of how much do our AIs contribute to the type of marketing that we target to people? So I'm interpreting the question that way. Yeah. Well, obviously it plays a big role. And another big part of it is the whole analytics thing that we do, the digital analytics. And we have a whole department which takes care of that. We call ourselves this huge department, Digital Customer and Analytics. And so analytics play a much, much larger role than, for example, things like suggestion bots, like you would find on Amazon or Apple Music or Spotify. Things that say, 99% of customers who bought this bar of soap also bought this, and that's why you should buy it. And we rely less on things like that, and we rely much more on actual data where we can see how people's behaviors were. So the AI itself is not taking over the part of helping you to make decisions on what you should buy next. Rather, we're understanding you and how you act, and then pouring that into then our engine, so to speak.
Awesome. I think that feeds nicely into a question posed by Sandra. Did your company conduct bias research in shopping, such as like layout and product inventory?
Absolutely. And, I had a very long conversation with one of our senior design experts. And I really wish, I don't wish, but if this talk had much more time, there is so much we could share about that. And I'll try to keep it as succinct as possible. and it goes somewhere along the lines of, obviously, we observe how people move through the stores, and we observe, excuse me, we observe behaviors, and we try to pour that into whatever it is that we do. But in the end, there is it's really hard to formulate this, but by observing people's behaviors when they shop, it's really hard to make an inference, in terms of different groups of people and what groups of people like to buy or do not like to buy. And I think it would be far from us to say, we have a supermarket in the area which is predominantly this type of person, and that's why we will only sell this type of thing in that store. Once we go down that road, then we're doing exactly what I was saying we shouldn't do. But we should understand our demographic, absolutely. And that doesn't make us biased by understanding what different groups of people may tend to buy, but excluding things that we think they won't buy is problematic.
That answers, someone posed, what's the difference between targeted marketing and bias? That's a really nice answer to that.
Yes.
Well,
yes. Sorry, one thing one last thing maybe I wanted to say to that is, as I was saying before in my talk, it's okay to choose who you would like to sell to. It's okay. It's not okay when your choices harm others. That's the important thing.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your time with us. We really appreciate it. Anyone who's interested, engaged, we will pin his WordPress blog. It's pinned now. There you go. Hopefully I did that correctly. And thank you all for joining, and have a great rest of your day at the conference. Thanks, Sudan.
Thanks a lot. Okay, bye-bye.